welcome to the Ordinary Black Professionals. I'm Nicole,
And I'm Stefan.
and today we have Serena with us, the founder of Elevate. Elevate is a platform which provides career advice to young adults, and today she'll be talking to us about how to get a job after graduation. So, welcome, Serena.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on the podcast. I really enjoy listening to some of the episodes you've had so far, so thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. So, let's start, I guess, right from the beginning. Why did you decide to start Elevate?
Yeah, so I started Elevate because of kind of what I've seen through my job as a graduate recruiter over the last couple of years. So, I mean, the main idea is to give um, young adults, specifically of a BAME background or low socioeconomic background a bit of a leg up because what I've seen through kind of working in different companies as a graduate recruiter is that those, people from private schools, as it were, or that go to a Russell Group University, for example, they seem to know exactly how to interview, exactly how to do their applications,
Right.
and then they then tend to do better and kind of outperform others that just don't have that insight or don't have access to the same level or standard of resources.
Mm,
So
Hmm.
that's mainly why I started Elevate. It's just to help those people that don't have that. And I think Instagram is a really accessible platform. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd agree. Instagram
yeah.
is very accessible to kind of get your content and material out there. And what is really good about your kind of Instagram page slash presence is that you break it down and make it digestible for people to consume so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And you're giving like real life career stories as well, so you can see how someone's progressed from university to what other whatever career they've ended up in.
Yeah, I really like that series. I started that not too long ago. And I just thought people need to be able to see how others have gotten to positions where they might want to eventually be. And
Mm,
it's not always clear, and you don't always necessarily want to kind of reach out to random people on LinkedIn. So it's a bit easier if it's on my platform and there's different people featuring every week.
Yeah. Do people reach out to you, like in the DMs?
Yes, a lot.
oh, okay.
Um,
Interesting.
because of my job, obviously a lot of people want to know how they can get into my company. So I work as a graduate recruiter at a top 10 UK accountancy firm. So it's basically the big four, and then we're called like a mid-tier size firm. So we're kind of in the middle of that top 10. Um, and yeah, people reach out to me all the time.
Really?
Sometimes with really basic kind of messages like, oh, what roles are available? And I just redirect them to the website. But sometimes it's more like, what can I do to improve? Or I didn't make it past the first round or the second stage of the application process. You know, what can I do? Help me. And I try and do my best. And then there was someone that was interested in getting into graduate recruitment like me, and I gave her a lot of my time and kind of explained everything. Um, so yeah,
Mm,
I'm
that's
always on LinkedIn.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Helping the people.
Trying
Helping the
to.
people them. But it's interesting what you said about the career stories because that's what Stephanie we spoke about in one of our earlier podcasts about it's people don't share their journeys enough. So it looks like they've just gone from 0 to 100, but
Mm,
actually you've not seen the struggle or how they bounced around to different jobs or how they, took really junior roles before they ended up in that senior role. You don't see people don't often share that journey, and so it
mm,
doesn't feel real to people, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like, well, how can I ever get there because I don't even know like what steps they would have taken. So I
Mm.
think
exactly.
sharing the journeys, the struggles, and also the good stuff too is really important.
Yeah.
People
Yeah,
don't speak enough about that.
yeah. I definitely want to get both of you to feature as well, because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you have
We'd
quite
we'd
We'll be
love
happy
interesting.
to,
to.
yeah. So there's so many struggles to share. So many struggles of consulting.
Just rehash one of the ones we've already spoken about.
Yeah.
But we've got
Imposter
more.
yeah. Imposter syndrome, promotion, pay rises, not knowing what you're doing in life. Okay,
All
so
right.
should we dive straight in then?
Yeah. Let's get into those tips.
Get into the nitty gritty. So the first tip that you have, what's that going to be?
Yeah, so I think my first tip for graduates, I kind of thought of the tips as to what I would have kind of wanted to know, or wish I knew when
Mm,
I was graduating in final year a couple of years ago. So the first one is not to only focus on applying for graduate schemes. I think that's all you, it's not all you see, but that's the main thing that's being pushed to you, I don't know, by university careers advisors. That's kind of all you're seeing is, oh, this graduate scheme, that graduate scheme, uh, and usually at some of the largest companies um, in the world. And it's like, okay, do you know how many people are going to be applying for those? How competitive it is? Maybe have a look outside of that. So that's the basis of my first tip, is just to not only focus on applying for those, but on kind of entry level grad jobs and in other industries and sectors, maybe outside of, I don't know, accounting or
Yeah.
consulting.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's a really good point because one way I see it is that I agree, like when I was applying for grad jobs, the only thing in my mind was grad jobs, like graduate schemes. If it didn't have the word scheme on it
I wasn't
or
joining.
graduate on it, I wasn't applying for it,
I agree.
right? And
Yeah,
and I feel like that's partly because of um, some of the entry level jobs are not very clear that of what level they're for, and
true.
it's like not 100% clear of like,
Who they?
can I apply for that? Are they
Yeah.
looking for a graduate who basically knows nothing,
Mm,
or
Mm,
is it, is this really for me? And I also think that sometimes people are so set on those jobs with the word graduate or scheme in it that they don't realize that there's other directions that they could take to also get to that endpoint. Like
yeah.
I
yeah,
think about your story, Nicole. Like you can take parallel roads because, like you gave your career story in an early episode, but you can take parallel roads to get to the same place.
Yeah. But the thing is that with so with the grad schemes, it's fancy, isn't it? So I think that's why so many people focus on it. And as you said, Serena, your the university career advisor, they always push you in those directions. Go to a grad scheme at Unilever, go to a grad scheme at BT. They always go to the big companies, and
Mm,
so
yeah,
you think that that is where it's at. Like you think that is where you need to go to be able to succeed after university.
yeah,
And I mean, well, definitely that was where my mind was at. I was like, if it's not a grad scheme, I don't want to
yeah.
go there.
yeah,
Everything other than that is, beneath me. But I eventually did end up in one of those kind of entry level jobs because I didn't get a grad scheme
Mm,
initially. But I think that's where a lot of the thinking comes from, like that's the only job. And then, as you
yeah.
said, with the entry roles, it's not clear whether that's for you. Like the way I got my entry level job was that wasn't a grad scheme, was through a recruiter in the end, but it's not,
Hmm.
if I was just looking for it by myself, I don't think I would have applied because I thought, oh, that's not for me. They want someone more like experienced
mm.
Yeah. I think
And
things have become easier, I would say, since kind of we
since our days.
graduated. So now you can go on LinkedIn, job search, filter it by entry level, and there will
Mm.
be lots of things, and they will say graduate in them.
Oh,
Whereas
okay.
before, it just wasn't obvious at
mm,
all, really. I didn't even think about anything that wasn't a graduate scheme. I didn't really,
Mm.
obviously I knew it was there, but not to the point where I knew how to find those jobs, if that makes sense.
And I forget, yeah, of course, there's LinkedIn because back in, well, definitely in me and Stefan's day, LinkedIn wasn't really.
it was
Mm,
there, but you wouldn't really use it to find a job back then.
yeah.
Yeah, but I was talking about parallel roads because I feel like what you did is you, you got that entry level job, and then like a year or so later, you got the grad scheme job anyway as well.
Yeah,
So you still ended up in where you wanted to go in the first place, but you just had to take a parallel road.
yeah.
And you know there's a limited number of spaces, especially nowadays, like with the
Mm.
pandemic and who companies are hiring, how many people they're hiring these
Mm,
days. Like you might have to take a parallel road to get to the same place.
Mm.
So people need to
exactly.
consider that, I think.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember what grad schemes I actually got to the final um, stages of. I think it was BT, obviously super competitive. That was for HR grad scheme because I knew I wanted to get into HR. which narrowed it down a fair amount. Then there was um, the civil service fast stream,
Mm.
um, and then there was someone else. Oh, Cancer Research UK. Again, that's the biggest charity in the UK. So I,
Yeah,
Mm.
I
it's
remember.
yeah.
Yeah, they're big. So would you say that those entry level type jobs, do they pay as much as the grad schemes?
Um, Probably not. Grad scheme starting salaries for those large companies are very high. I'm not gonna lie. Like it can't quite be matched by an entry level job, but what I would say is that you can progress quicker in an entry level job because you're not tied into a 2 year, 3 year plus program.
Mm.
And you get more exposure, I would say, again, because it's not a strict program. So I think there are a lot of benefits to going entry level. I personally went entry level, and I think for kind of the industry that I'm in, like, or just within HR, there's no need to be doing a grad scheme. There's just no need.
Okay,
All right.
interesting. So tip number two then.
Yeah, so tip number two, again, I needed to hear this when I was graduating, quality over quantity when it comes to the job applications.
Mm.
I was honestly applying for any HR grad scheme. I didn't care the sector, industry, the company. I was not bothered, just literally anything and everything. And however many I could kind of put out in a day. And there was no structure or anything to it, and it was just a mess. And I think if I had just put a decent amount of time and effort into a few, I would have done a lot better. Um, Instead of just kind of, because I used to have like these generic answers that I would copy and
Mm.
paste from a Word doc into the application form when they had like competency questions or questions about why you want to work there and just kind of edit a little bit. Um, that is never going to cut it for those competitive grad
Companies.
scheme, yeah, roles. So yeah, quality over
Mm.
quantity.
What do you mean by quality, though?
Yeah, so the quality of the application you're putting forward. So if you're spending, let's say, 2 hours or hour and a half on one application, I think that's a good amount of time. Then the quality is what are you saying? How are you coming across? How much prep and research have you done into the company, into what they're looking for? Have you reached out to someone that's got that role already, who's on the grad scheme, and be like, how did you, get through the stages? What are they looking for? What should I do? How much effort have you really put in to answering the questions? Have you put in all of your education or just your degree? Stuff like that. Those are the small stuff that
Mm.
will, kind of either make you get through to the next round or not. And people don't really think about that.
I find that one tricky though, because on some of my applications, I applied for must have been, 60 to like 70 grad schemes, or maybe even more, like literally tens and tens of grad schemes. All the companies you can name, I applied there.
Hmm.
And to do applications, like to spend like hours and hours on them and then to get rejected, because some of them you spend hours and hours and then you get through to the test and then you fail the test anyway.
Yeah,
So then it's like, well, I didn't even, I'm sure no one even read my response because the test is um
that
it's
is
like the
true.
gateway, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that is
then it's
true.
like it's only helpful if you pass the test and then someone's there to read it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, I feel like it is definitely quality, but it's a bit of a numbers game at the same time because it's you're trying to just get as many out there.
Yeah. I think for me, I had the same issue with the test. So I realized I need to actually put effort into the test more than the
Mm.
application forms because that was what was holding me back. So at university they had like I don't know, a team or whoever that supported you with practicing the test. I went there, you know. For me that's putting in the decent amount of work. Do you know what I mean? Whereas some people were just not passing, and then just doing it again and just doing it again, not really doing the
Mm,
practice tests that are usually freely available with the company. And there's also other websites um, to this day that you can practice them on. They weren't doing it. They just kept banging out application after application, not really focusing on where you went wrong and trying to improve that.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I think I was probably one of those people because I felt like I would try and do the practice, but the practice stuff was always way easier than the
Yeah,
actual test. So then it just felt like, well, what's even the point?
I
So in
agree.
the
yeah,
end, I
Yeah.
ended up just applying for jobs that didn't have that because I felt like it was a stupid, I still think it's a stupid way to wean people. It's just
I
a way to
agree.
wean people out. It
Mm,
doesn't actually show or prove anything.
Mm.
very true.
And it's just like I just don't see the point of it. Even those silly personality tests that they have or cultural fit tests, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah,
You know what?
having
Yeah, I
yeah,
get it sometimes with the graduate schemes because the sheer number of
Yeah,
people
because you have
applying.
thousands of people, but when those
Yeah,
small companies want to give you like a verbal reasoning, thinking that you're, I don't know, a Virgin Media who gets thousands of applications. If you're a 100 people company and you want to give me those tests, I'm like, no.
yeah,
Do you know, I'm like literally no, because
yeah.
what even warrants you to have that? You're not having thousands of applications. Sorry, that
Mm,
sounds really harsh to the small companies, but I think you have to like people have to be picky as grads as to where they want to apply to, and I know that's so much
exactly.
easier said than done
yeah, a lot easier said than done.
because you just and I know and
You
I
might
get
end up
it.
with nothing.
Yeah, and I get it because I was a person who like I need to go anywhere, I need to get like any job after uni and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you just take the time to find someone that's going to work for you and think about, are you going to be someone where you can learn and grow? And you're going to be working until you're 60, 65. So actually, a couple of years out when you leave uni at 21 isn't going to make the biggest amount of difference. I think you can, I don't know, start your career on the right foot, but much easier said than done. I know
Mm,
that.
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm just trying to remember. I think it was my sister. She applied for L'Oreal, and
Oh
they
yeah.
had the series of tests, and she failed the first time, but they really liked her application form, so they allowed her to retake it, and then she failed again, and then they were like, okay, no, but I was thinking surely you would just kind of because it wasn't like every single test she failed. I think it was just one,
Mm,
and I was like, that shows that they're not worth much, to be honest, and they're a bit of
yeah.
just yeah, just to filter out applications because it's really unfair because if you clearly like that applicant and you want to see them, why won't you just kind of
Give them a chance.
yeah,
mm,
give them a chance? Think, okay, maybe the tests aren't that important. I'm hoping they took it out the next year
Probably
after kind
not.
of that, but yeah,
mm.
probably not. But that's a great example of why they're
Yeah.
nonsense.
When I was applying, the one thing that I avoided was companies that gave me tests. Because there was a few companies that gave me those numeric tests, verbal reasoning tests, and hey, I'm just not great at those tests. So I applied to companies that weren't doing any tests, and
Hmm.
it's there where I had the most success. But they
Mm,
had lots of other stages like interviews and stuff. Because hey, I can talk to you, I can, you know, say how much I love this company and how much I want to work here and all that stuff. But that verbal reasoning is not going to be useful, is
no,
it?
it's absolute
No.
nonsense.
Yeah. One thing that you said that surprised me was you said people don't put all of their education, they just put their degree. I thought, isn't that all they want? Degree?
No. So for a lot of grad jobs, they still need to know, like part of the entry requirements is that you got decent A levels and decent maths, English GCSE. So it shows that you've not put much effort into your application if you A haven't realized that that's part of the entry requirements and B haven't bothered to then put that in. It's like, okay, you clearly applied for a lot of other places and just didn't couldn't be bothered, basically.
Oh, okay. So it's because it's mentioned in the entry requirements and you didn't put it
Yeah,
in.
it's on
Okay.
the job description, so put it in because we're gonna have to find out eventually anyway, which is why we asked them to fill it in on the form.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next tip? Tip three.
Tip three was to tailor your application. So this it's kind of linked to tip two. So your CV, your cover letter. your job application needs to be tailored to the specific role and company that you're applying for. And people are not doing it. Like I said, I personally was using generic things and just changing the company name,
Yeah.
for example. So you just can't expect to do well if you're not tailoring this, using the keywords from the job description, using kind of the research that you've done on the company, like putting in their cultures, their values, some of their kind of company keywords, as it were,
Mm.
kind of tailoring it completely is what everyone is looking for, whether that's grad scheme or entry level job or anything else.
You know what? I always feel a bit conflicted on this one because
Hmm.
although I fully get I have to tailor my CV for that company and show that this is I'm applying for you and this is for you,
Hmm.
I still feel like my CV represents me and
Yeah,
the me is the same no matter who I'm applying to, especially around the CV part. Like,
yeah,
this is who I am, this is what I've done, so why would I change it for anybody
But
else?
if you're a grad though, the cover letter allows you to put in extra stuff, maybe the extracurricular
Yeah,
stuff that you did at uni. If you're an
yeah,
experienced hire, I don't get it. But if you're a grad, because that's what I use my cover letter for when I was a grad to be like, oh, I did this and I did this and I did this at uni.
yeah. So
yeah,
for me, the cover letter is like, yeah, I did all this at uni, but that's still you. That still doesn't change for who you're applying to. But maybe
Yeah,
there's one paragraph in there that's like, and I want to apply to your company because the role suits me, etc.,
yeah,
etc.,
that's fair.
etc. Um, yeah,
yeah.
so I always feel a bit conflicted, and I always also feel a bit like cringy as well. Like,
Well, do you know what? It's funny you should say that because this is a thing that a lot of black people don't do, and they're not very good at
mm,
when it comes to applying and when it comes to working in general, like just bigging up themselves.
mm,
Because a lot of that interview stuff I found was you really having to, especially when you're at the assessment centers, people at the assessment centers are good. Like
Yeah,
I always feel like I'm a strong interviewer, and that's not to big myself up, but I've been, I've had a lot of interviews and I feel like I interview well, but other people at assessment centers are so strong. I don't know where they come from. I don't know what stock they're getting bred from, but they're confident, they speak well, they're articulate, like they're funny, they're likable, all of that stuff.
yeah,
So I feel like, and they can like big themselves up in the right amount that's not arrogant, it's like the right tone. And it's
yeah,
that part that I think is really tricky that black people don't always do, is big themselves up when they've got a job and in that interview process as well.
yeah. Because it's not comfortable for us.
No,
So,
we, no one, our parents don't do it.
yeah,
Like we haven't been brought up where like we got overly like, I don't know, a lot of positive feedback. Like it wasn't really something that, well, for me at least, happened in the household to
mm,
therefore feel comfortable to be like, oh, I did a really great job at this and da 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 and take it forward.
yeah. You're meant to be humble. So you've grown up your whole life trying to be as humble as humanly possible. Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're meant to talk yourself up. It doesn't come naturally. So I always say I put on an act,
Mm.
after going to some of the assessment centers and realizing like the competition. I was like, okay, I need to bring out my acting skills and just try and emulate that kind of persona they're projecting, because I realized that that's what the people hiring wanted. That's what they liked. So I was like, okay, that's not naturally me, but I can act. I did drama GCSE. I can act. Okay, so that's what I do now. So I try and come across as enthusiastic as humanly possible, super smiley. It feels to me super cringe and like an obvious act, but it's not to the the hiring managers, and the recruiters.
They love
And
it.
it's not that I'm not being myself, because the things I'm saying, kind of as Stefan was saying, is it's the same me. It's all facts, but I just kind of play up a, to it a bit, and it's helped me be more successful at
yeah,
interviews. 100%.
yeah. There's definitely a correlation there. It happens for me as well. Like, you know, when I was saying cringy,
Hmm.
what I meant by that was like, I had to tailor my CV and say how much I love this company and how much I want to work there, and I find that cringy because I don't necessarily love your company that much. Like
Yeah.
you're actually number 15 on my list.
In it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. And the funny thing is, the companies that I really wanted to work for, like I always really wanted to work for Unilever, and they were like the first ones to reject me. And the companies I weren't really that keen to work for, I suddenly, for some reason, got through to the interview stages. But-
Yeah. Um,
And talking about rejection,
yeah.
I think your next tip was don't take rejection personally.
Yeah. So I literally did a post on this week. So I think from what I've seen and kind of my own experiences, you you're applying for all of these schemes. You're literally desperate to get a grad job or get onto a grad scheme, and you are taking rejection personally. Like you feel like it's something that you've done wrong, or you're not good enough, um, or the other person was better. But that's not always the case. Um, from my experience, now I'm on the other side. There's so many other different factors in place as to why you didn't get the job, basically. So, for example, we sometimes put roles out externally and advertise them externally, but there's some internal employees that are interested in getting onto the grad scheme. So we're going to see them first. We're not going to look at your
Oh.
applications, but just in case they're not very good, we need some external applicants that we can go to should we need to, and stuff like that. It's, or, it could be unconscious bias or discrimination as to why you didn't get it. Sometimes hiring managers are super petty, so a weak handshake or um,
A weak
um,
handshake.
yeah, or in investment management, they like people that wear the full suit. So a shirt and a blazer is not going to cut. If you don't have a tie, they're already thinking, hmm, and stuff like that that you would just never think of or know, and that's super silly and unfair, but could be the reason why you didn't get the job. It doesn't necessarily mean the other person was better. Also, when you apply is super important.
Yeah.
So um, if you apply earlier, you're more likely to get the job, especially with grad schemes. That's just how it works because those applications come through to us first. We're trying to get people through the process, video interview, assessment center as quickly as possible. The people that are applying, you know, later, the chances are we won't get round to you, as it were, and we've already hired someone by the time you've applied, but we still keep the role open just in case. Because what tends to happen is people will get multiple graduate job offers, so then we have to run another assessment center because the person that we initially kind of hired has then decided actually, yeah, I'm going to go to X company instead.
And I've fallen foul of this. I applied to I think it was like a mobility society company that provides like wheelchairs and
All right.
um, cars for those who weren't um, able-bodied. And the grad scheme was great because it was like 32K, like salary was really high, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to work here. Just spent ages on my application form, submitted it, but I submitted it like a week or so, or even like the day that it closed. And then a few
Way too
weeks
late.
late, way too late, a few weeks later, but I feel like I spent a good effort on it, It was like a banging
Mm.
application form. But a few weeks later, I got an email to say, oh yeah, you completed it too late, and we've already found like our grads for the year. And I was like, what? I was like, what? But it's but I submitted it in the closing time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah, a lot of
oh,
people fall foul
You
to
know
that.
what? That's such a big one because I didn't realize that back then when I was applying for grads.
yeah,
Like the deadline is not a deadline. It's like um first come first served.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had no idea. So you would actually be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna submit this next week Tuesday. I'm gonna spend time on it. Nah,
yeah.
you lost your shot now.
Yeah, that happened to me as well. I learned the hard way. I honestly, I would say for most of the schemes I applied for, I was applying a day or two before the deadline. Like now, to me, that feels so stupid.
He was never gonna get the job.
Yeah, and I had no idea. It's a bit sad to be honest. But yeah, that's why I say don't take rejection personally. And also a big factor is likability. If they don't if they don't like your personality or just your the way you are, your persona or how you came across or something, they're not going to hire you. And that's not necessarily something you can change, unfortunately. Um, but ultimately they're thinking, do I want to work with you?
This is an interesting one, this likability one,
Mm,
because
Mm.
I
We talk
remember
about this all the time on
we
this
talk about this all
podcast.
the time. It's problematic for lots of different reasons.
it is.
I remember going to interviews. This is companies that didn't get the job, and the feedback that they would give me, because when you get to the assessment centres, at least experience I had, I'd tend to get like actual like feedback. And one of the positive pieces of feedback is that I was likable. I was likable. I'd always get that back. And I would always
Mhm.
say to my mum, that's shit feedback. Like, who wants to be
It is.
likable? I want to be, I want to be competent. I want to be
Hired.
credible. Yeah, I want to be hired. You're telling me you're likable, but I ain't got the job. So what good does that mean? And it always used to annoy me. And now I've, been working for, years, I so understand just how important or just how much being likable gets you things,
Yep,
gets you promotions, gets you pay rises, gets you opportunities in the workplace. But
Mm.
it's also subjective because my likable is not going to be Stefan's likable. It's not going to be your likable, Serena. So it's like
exactly.
it's so wrong. And more than likely, you're going to like somebody who has the similar, who talks like you, who sounds like you, who's got the similar interests. It's
Yeah.
so riddled in your own bias.
Yeah.
It's so problematic.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely. But at the end of the day, it's the thing. If they're thinking, do I want to work with this person? Because you spend a lot of time at work, let's be real.
Mm.
9 to 5, 5 days a week. You're thinking, are we going to get on? Is she going to watch the same Netflix shows that I do? Do we listen to the same music? Like, do we have the same banter or sense of humor? They're thinking this. They're honestly thinking this. And oftentimes someone will be really good, but then the hiring manager will tell me, I just don't think, the word fit. They like the fit. That's what they're talking about, likability,
Mm.
not the right
Wow.
fit for
You
the
know what
team.
it is as well, yeah, because I don't necessarily drink, right?
Mm.
So
Mm,
that's sometimes an issue because I got hired one time and after I got hired, like on the first or second day, the guy was like, "Oh, let's go to the pub, get some pints," and I told him, "Oh, you know what? I don't drink." And his response to me was,
Best up.
"Oh, oh, I should have known that before I hired you."
That's what he said to you.
Yeah, I mean he was joking, but in some ways he wasn't joking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like subconsciously he was like, "Oh, I
yeah,
don't actually know this guy." Is what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
he's not the fun guy that I thought he was.
Yeah, the drink is
Mm,
a big one. The
it
other
is.
day at work, I lied and said that I drink rum and that I have rum in the house just so I could be part of the conversation. Because they were talking about fancy gins and that. So then they asked me, "Oh, what kind of rum do you drink?" And I was like, "The brown one." I was like, they wanted me to say, "Oh, like a Jack Daniels," because they were talking about different brands of gin and stuff like that. And I just felt like I wanted to be in the conversation. So I just lied. And I was like, why did I do that? That was so silly. And then they started sending me like all different types of like fancy rums you can get. I was
Was
like,
that
why
now
did
you
I
now
lie?
you've jumped yourself in it now?
I know. But I just
Yeah,
wanted to feel, you know what I mean, part of it. I wanted to be liked.
yeah.
Mm.
I feel people think I drink as much as them. Like I do drink, but not the way they see, not the level they seem to be drinking at. Because people are like, oh, what's your drink of choice? Once you have a drink of choice, all of a sudden they think you're at the pub, pre-pandemic, every week. No, I have IBS. When I say I have one drink and that's it. Well, my stomach is very angry at me. Like I think people genuinely think I'm just like them in that way that I drink a lot. But it works for me because if you're gonna assume that, then it makes my life a bit easier.
It
Yeah.
does. It does.
But I can't actually drink much because it makes me ill.
Do you know people? Another thing of the likability, like I think the drinking is is a big aspect, but it's also if you're like quiet or introverted or shy, and you're in a team that's not like that, people don't like you. People don't like people who are shy or quiet or who don't want to speak to them.
That's
They
true.
have a
Yep.
problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They take it, they're like, oh, they're so weird, they don't want to talk to us, as
They,
opposed to maybe there's something wrong with me as to why they don't want to hang out with me.
yeah.
They take it really personal and people don't want to like hang out with you.
You know what it
I've
is?
noticed that in my workplace because I don't go to a lot of the socials, and people always like to find it really strange and weird. And I'm like, because I'd much rather be at the gym or with my husband than
Mm,
with you guys, which sounds horrible, but we're not friend like I'm not friends with a lot of people at work. We're colleagues, so I don't
Yeah.
want to spend my free time with you.
we should tell them to take this tip and don't take rejection personally.
But they all want to be friends. They always want to be friends. But I don't want my colleagues to be my friends. So it's a tricky one.
It's a tricky one, and I feel like a lot of black people are like, I don't want to be friends with my my
Yeah.
work colleagues. A lot of black people are like, I just don't want to be. I've got friends, I've got like
Yeah. I don't
partners,
need any
whatever it is.
more
Yeah,
friends.
I don't need any more. I don't want it.
All right, tip number 5.
Tip number 5 is about research. Um, researching the company and the role and the industry that you're applying for. So obviously, everyone knows they're meant to do research, but not everyone is doing what I would say the correct research or doing the research properly or to the extent that they need to stand out or look really good in their application. So people think research is go on the company's website, click on the About Us page, um, and you're done. No, that is not gonna cut it at all, as far as I'm concerned, especially because it's super competitive at the moment. You need to be doing more than that. Don't just click on About Us. Go to, some of the other pages, the diversity inclusion page, CSR page, if they have a people page, their careers page, look at their annual report. Often they'll have like a accolades or awards kind of page somewhere in there, benefits, etc. Then you want to be looking at reviews. Go on Glassdoor, go on the job crowd and look at reviews from current or ex-employees. What are they saying
Mm,
about the company? Um, and then you want to be also looking at LinkedIn and their other social media. What are they posting? What's been going on recently with the company? Then you want to be searching them on Google to see any news that's come up recently. Are they in the headlines for anything, etc., etc. I could go on, but that's what we mean, kind of, as we, the recruiters, mean when we say do your research, because those are the kind of things that will make you stand out like an interview. If you know X, Y, or Z instead of just their mission is X, then yeah, you, you're gonna look a lot better.
Yeah, that's quite useful because, as you say, like you need to stand out. There's so many grads, not so many places, so you need to stand out, and that's one of the ways I think
yeah,
it's an
agreed.
important move to make. Tip 6.
Tip 6 is kind of what we touched on earlier, LinkedIn. Again, I yeah, I did have a LinkedIn because that was something the uni told us to get, but I didn't, I hadn't done my profile really. I don't think I had a picture and I wasn't using it. I wasn't going on it. But now today, LinkedIn and kind of the networking aspect of that um, is really one of the best resources I would say for grads.
Mm,
And I just feel like people are still not making the most of it, and that's kind of holding them back. So, you know, I mean, I could go into a bit more. So, you want to connect with people that are in the roles or companies that you aspire to. You want to slide into their DMs. 9 times out of 10, people will respond and they're willing to help. Um, you want to be joining the relevant groups. You want to be active, so you want to be commenting on um, the relevant posts, so whether that be for a company you want to join or um, I don't know, someone that you kind of look up to. You want to be commenting, you want to be liking, you want to be getting involved. It's also a good thing if you say you got through to interview, go and look up the interviewers or the team on LinkedIn, see how they got to where they are. I always love doing that. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so they graduated similar time to me, and now they're in X role, and they've gone to this company and did that job. and kind of see their career journey. And if mine's similar to that, I'm like, okay, so this is something, you know, they might be looking for someone like me because it's similar to someone they've hired before, stuff like that. Um, just really get into LinkedIn basically, and obviously make sure you have a solid profile. Um, the keywords, recruiters search on LinkedIn, you're more likely to pop up if you've done more of your profile, if you've got more of the keywords that they're searching in your profile, and in your headline and stuff like that.
I feel like nowadays LinkedIn is like an essential resource, especially
Yeah.
if you're job hunting, because um, like what you said about looking up your interviewer, I still do that today.
You still
Hmm.
do.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm gonna interview someone, I'm gonna go check that guy on LinkedIn, or
See,
if I'm
like,
interviewing someone, I'm gonna check that guy on LinkedIn same
Yeah.
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just on that, it's interesting when you say how, talking about how to grow your following, because my cousin messaged me, was like, "Oh, how do I know? I'm on LinkedIn. How do I grow it?" type of thing.
Hmm.
And I really did not know what to say to her because like it's not like an Instagram where you can just like follow any and anybody.
Yeah.
Because when people, random people who I've never spoken to, want to link up with me, I don't click accept. 'Cause I don't know who you are,
Yeah.
and you may know if you're grads. I'm like, well, I don't think I can help you, kind of thing. Especially if there's no
Yeah.
message with it. I did mention to her to kind of join the groups and stuff, but other than that, I didn't really know what to say. So it's good that you've explained the tips that graduates can do to help build up their LinkedIn profile. Because if you're a
Yeah.
first year grad or a third year grad and you don't really have, you don't have any contacts because you haven't got a job, it's hard to know where to start. I think
Yeah.
this is really good for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're talking about getting a job after graduation, not necessarily a graduate job or
Yeah.
scheme. So, I mean, recruiters are crawling all over that platform. If you want a
Yeah.
job, just shout on there, and they'll be there like Batman. You know what I mean? They will
We've
be
been.
there.
Have you been headhunted on LinkedIn before, either of you?
People have contacted us and
Hmm.
sent us messages for jobs. I've never
Yeah.
accepted a job after being contacted
Hmm.
directly. Actually,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
uh, yeah, for the contracting stuff, I did accept a job after being contacted directly, but not for a perm job.
Okay.
Yeah, I've interviewed for a job where I've been contacted directly, but I've not, yeah, I don't think I've accepted it. Because
Mm.
I find they'll just ping you after anything, and my LinkedIn is sparse. All it says is my two, like where I worked before, my previous companies where I work now. No information as to what I even did there. So when people are saying, "Oh, I think you'd be great for this role," I'm like, nothing on my CV, nothing on my LinkedIn even tells you that.
So how
So
do you know?
yeah, how do you know? All you see is like management consulting. You're like, yeah, I think you'd be really great for this change role, and it's like that's not even what I do.
Yeah,
I don't do change management.
yeah. But if
Um,
you're a
Yeah.
graduate, you probably won't have that problem. You'll just be like,
yeah, yeah,
you're looking for entry level jobs, and they will be there.
yeah,
Yeah. For real. I've been headhunted on LinkedIn quite a few times. I think that's just because I've filled in a lot in my profile,
yeah.
so I'm more likely to pop up. And it's usually relevant roles, I would say. I don't think I've necessarily taken any, but I think one of them, yeah, it was a recruiter from an agency, so I linked up to that agency, and then she would send me relevant jobs, and I think I at least interviewed for one of those. So
Mm.
it's always a good way to bring in kind of, get the people to come to you, as it were. You don't always have to go to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very
Mm.
good point. And now you can also turn on LinkedIn. You can say that you're actively looking for a job. So
Mm,
like I'm interested in recruiters contacting me. You can like toggle that on. So that's another way for people to kind of get in touch with you as well.
yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, I used to have that on. I mean, I still get people messaging me even when I don't have it on,
Yeah,
which is a bit
yeah.
annoying. Um,
It
but
makes
yeah,
you feel wanted, doesn't it?
yeah, I can't complain. So yeah, LinkedIn, that was the sixth tip.
All right, tip 7.
Tip seven was about experience. I think I'm tired of getting questions from students and graduates about, oh, I don't have experience in accounting. How am I going to get into accounting?
Mm,
Okay, sweetie, you do not need experience. No one is expecting you to have experience. You're literally 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. Where are you getting these these experiences from?
Yeah.
And I think it's a big misconception that they think employers are expecting you to have experience in kind of some of the most random stuff, like you're applying for I don't know, or audit scheme or operations. How are you going to have experience in those kind of things?
Yeah.
You're
Mm.
not. But people put a lot of onus on it and therefore don't apply for certain things. Um, so it's less about the experience, more about the transferable skills. That is what employers are looking for. So, the common basic ones like communication, teamwork. It sounds silly, but that is what we're looking for because in 90% of jobs, obviously outside of the technical, that's what they want. And
Mm.
you need examples of that, whether that be from your extracurricular activities, your part-time job at Tesco or at university. Those are also the examples we're expecting to see. Um, but people think that's not enough, or and they'll be discounted. You know, the application will be thrown away because they don't have experience, and that's really not true. People put too much onus on that and not enough on skills and like just being enthusiastic and really wanting to join X company and really be willing to learn because that's obviously what you're doing. You don't know anything. You're there to learn. Show
Mm.
that you got a good chance.
You know, I think one thing people discount a lot of time is transferable skills.
Mm,
And like the examples you mentioned, working in Tesco's, or whatever, you've got actually skills, and people think I don't know anything, I don't have anything or an experience, but
mm,
actually you do, and they just don't count it, and they
yep,
don't bring it out like in interviews, they don't big it up. Those, those are the things to big up.
exactly. Completely agree.
Okay, I think the next tip was something we've already mentioned.
Yep.
Tip 8,
That was about applying earlier, but that kind of came up already.
yeah, and tip 9,
Tip 9 was about feedback. So again, kind of touched on this before. You're getting thousands of applications for a role where there's only maybe, let's say, two, three positions, which is like common for kind of where I work now. And then obviously we're unable to give feedback, like individual feedback to every person that applies. We actually only give individual feedback to those who reached the final stage, which is assessment center for us. Um, and we get a lot of emails. I manage the mailbox, so I get a lot of emails about, oh, please can I have feedback for people that maybe failed at the test stage, which is usually the beginning. And it's like the feedback I'm going to give you, if even if I had the time to give it to everyone that sent that email, is not even going to be useful. Like people put again too much onus on feedback. Like the feedback you receive, take it with a pinch of salt because even what sounds like it would be helpful or what sounds like is individual to you is often not. It's often slightly generic. And you changing kind of all the things I told you you did wrong in the feedback won't necessarily mean you'll get the next job. And it's also
Mm.
very subjective as well. You can go to one interviewer, they'll give you X feedback, the other one will give you opposite. It's not that helpful, and people put too much onus of it. So if you don't get the feedback, don't worry, because I don't actually think it's that helpful, but people think it is.
you know what? This one is like, um, when I was a grad applying for jobs and I was looking
Hmm.
for tips like this, one of the tips would be get feedback.
Yeah,
And now we're saying the opposite, like, well, not the opposite, not get feedback, but like
yeah,
to take it with a pinch of salt.
yeah.
And my experience of taking the tip of getting feedback and then receiving the feedback and thinking to myself, that is some bullshit, is yeah,
That's
definitely take it with a pinch of
yeah.
salt or
That's
just
how I
don't
Yeah,
even
felt.
take it sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's how I felt when I got my feedback. I remember I interviewed at the first assessment center that I got to. I interviewed there. One of the activities we had to do was a presentation, and I think it was about we had to present something about our childhood or something that's influenced us in our childhood or something like that
Yeah.
in front of the rest of the individuals who were applying and obviously whoever was in the room, HR, I was applying for procurement people, whatever. So I got up there and did my interview. So I did my presentation. I later didn't get the job, and the feedback the woman gave me said, um, I had notes in my hand and to not look down at my notes so much. And
Mhm.
I said to the woman, I didn't have any notes. I didn't, when I did my presentation, I just did it all from I rehearsed it and I just memorized what I was going to say. So I didn't have any like notes there. And then she flip-flopped and said, oh, well, just as some feedback, it's always good to have notes. And, you're not going to be penalized if you hold any notes in your hand.
So she just criticized
And then I and
people
then
for
and
having
then I
notes.
just and then I just was like, well, that's just some bullshit because I didn't stutter and no, my presentation was flawless. So it wasn't like
Because you
I
practiced
needed.
it.
Yeah, I practiced it. I rehearsed it in the mirror
Yeah.
again and again and again, did it in front of family and all sorts. So it wasn't like so first she's there saying to me, oh, you had your notes and you was looking down too much. I said I didn't have no notes. And now she's saying, well, because you didn't have any notes, would be good if you did have notes. And that's when I realized she didn't know, like, she was giving out some generic stuff.
Yep.
Maybe there's no real reason he didn't get the job. He just didn't. And
Mm,
that's just
Exactly.
really hard to hear that there's no
Yeah.
real reason. But I generally
Exactly.
believe on some of my interviews, there was no real reason. I just, yeah, maybe they didn't like the way I spoke or just something wasn't vibing with them. Their gut feeling said no.
mm.
And
Yeah.
therefore I just didn't get it. So there was nothing tangible really there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame her in a way. Obviously, she was in the wrong. But I get it because even when we give individual feedback, because of the amount of people you're seeing, sometimes you will get mixed up, and sometimes it's individual but it's generic, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you're just changing around some of the stuff that you would feedback on, and then just putting it in a different spin on it or something. Do you know what I mean? I
Mm,
fall victim to that, but it's nature of kind of graduate recruitment because we really don't have the time. I think instead of feedback, your own self-reflection
Mm.
is just as useful, if not more so,
Yeah, I
because
was gonna
you know
say,
what
yeah.
you did wrong at the end of the day, or what you could have done better.
mm.
You actually know. So
Yeah, you do.
that's better.
You walk away be like, that was not a good interview.
Mm.
That didn't go well.
Exactly.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, tip 10. I think we've covered this one already as well.
Yeah, we kind of covered this. The likability factor. I still feel like it's underrated. And I think the simplest thing, like smiling and giving good eye contact and laughing at their dead jokes, is honestly worth a lot. It's worth a lot at interview. Like it really is. Um, that's what makes them like you. That's what makes them want to work with you because they think, oh, this girl, she's just so bubbly and friendly, and she has a nice laugh and she smiles and she just seems like sunshine and rainbows. They're gonna like you more. That's just fact. And that's what helps you come across as more enthusiastic, like that positive body language and gestures and seeming a little energetic. That's what they want at the
Mm.
end of the day. So,
You know what? The eye contact one is funny because that's a tip that I took up, right?
hmm
I started doing it in every one of my interviews, but then
You give
I
good
felt
eye
like
contact.
not before I made it official, like, and so I
Oh.
really started doing it. Um, but I felt like it started becoming a staring contest, and then
Yeah, but don't
it
make it weird.
I mean, how
you
long
made
do I
it
Sounds
look
weird.
like
into her eye? Then I was like, okay, so I need to flip this up a bit. I need to look into their eyes and then look around a bit and then look into their eyes again. And I got to flip it around while I'm talking. And then COVID happened and there was no more eye contact. And I was like, so what do I look at? The eyes or the camera? And I was like, well, it kind of makes sense to look at the camera. So now I'm staring hard at this camera and I
no, that's
can't
the
even see him because I'm not really looking at him. I'm trying to look at the camera. Should I be
no,
looking
you
at the
know.
camera?
No, you shouldn't. They always say that. Don't look at, because when you look at the camera, your eyes are slightly off, so it doesn't look like you're looking at the person. You just got to look at the person. It's weird to do.
What do you mean? I'm looking at the person because I'm looking at the camera.
No.
Yeah, you are. What you're meant to do is
But
look at the camera, but then look at them, kind of alternate, basically, without, looking twitchy. But you need to look at the camera. That helps you give a bit of eye contact, but you also need to be seeing how they're receiving what you're saying at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I would advise for video kind of interviews.
Yeah, okay. You're the expert, not me.
Um,
uh,
so
yeah.
yeah, that was tip 10.
Tip 11.
Tip 11 was about having a strategy, um, like a job search strategy. You need to have an idea of how you're going to go about it. Because again, when I was graduating, it was a mess. There was no structure, rhyme, or reason to what I was doing, what I was applying for, how I was applying for it. It was just a mess. And I think I always say treat finding a job like a job. So you
Mm,
want to get really good at it and you want to really be planned and organized. So a lot of people now would recommend having a tracker so you can see what you've applied for, the deadlines, notes, where you're at in the stage, etc. Also having a list of requirements as to what you want, and then you can hold that up next to the job description and be like, oh yes, this ticks my boxes. So salary, extra benefits, um, the specific, I don't know, training or development that you're looking for. Do they offer that? Tick. Or do they have flexible working? Tick. Do they have a thriving D&I team and with events and initiatives? Tick. Stuff like that. So have a list of requirements. Have a
Yeah, I
list
like
of
that.
companies as well that you're actually interested in, rather than just applying for all the companies that do what you're interested in. Like maybe have a look and think, I want to work for this company. Then when a job comes up for that company, you can kind of be on it and stuff like that. Basically, have a strategy.
Yeah, I like that list of requirements because as a grad, you don't even think about that kind of thing. You're just trying to get a job, aren't you?
Yep.
yeah.
But it's good to.
Well, my requirement was is that they had to be giving me 28K or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was very money orientated. I didn't get that. It didn't happen.
That isn't that's quite high for um grad salaries.
Yeah, yeah. I was aiming high, Serena. That's why it didn't work out. Because I was applying for BT, Sky, Kellogg's, L'Oreal, all of those like really big companies who
Mm,
would pay
pay a lot.
between 26 to 28K, kind of around that range. Or some
Mm.
really random ones that pay like even 32. So yeah,
So you just shooting for the stars,
literally,
hoping for
literally,
the best.
literally.
I
I
love
didn't
that.
even consider like a smaller company for a
Yeah.
long, long, long time. And in hindsight, I wish I did more because I think I could have, as you said earlier, like the experience you could have gotten with a smaller company, the growth and learning, I think maybe would have been more like better for me if I did go for a smaller company. I think I would have learned a lot more.
Yeah, I
But
feel that way
hindsight's
too.
2020.
I think I would have liked to have worked in startup at some point.
Mm,
I don't think that's something I can do now just because I need the job security.
yeah,
But when you're fresh out of uni, I think that would be quite fun and a really good learning experience because you get a lot of responsibility, because they have one person doing 10 roles and you have the energy to do that at that age
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, you
So,
definitely got the energy to do it for sure. I was
yeah.
running around doing all sorts.
But it's even I was saying to you the other day, Steph, we at my company it's quite small, and when I joined from a large company into this small company, I would see people who are the same level up as me or junior, and they would do presentations or walk into meetings, and they'd be so confident, like present really well, like just really could carry themselves really well in the consulting space. And I was so impressed, and it was because in the company, if you're a grad, they gave you so many great opportunity. Well, they give you 6 weeks of training, before you even get onto
Mm,
client site, how to write an email, like basic stuff like that, but then also more complex stuff. And then they give you so much guidance when you're on your first client role that they really help you, like, I don't know, like just grow and learn when you're really junior.
Mm,
Whereas sometimes in those big companies, you just go on and do a project or go and do your day job and you're there like struggling because you don't even know how to write an email. Do you
yeah.
start with dear John or do you go like many thanks or like all
Yeah.
of that stuff? How do you structure it? And is it
But you
super
know what?
formal? Is it sincerely Nicole? And
But one
It's
thing I'll say about that is that it's not about whether it's a small or a big company or if it's a startup, because you could go to a startup and you think, oh, I'm going to get so much experience, but it could actually be really bad experience because nobody
Mm,
shows you the right way to do things
yeah,
or teaches you the right way to do things in this career. When you go to
that's
another
true.
job, you're actually way out of your depth when you go to another job because you've not learned industry standards. You've just done it to make it work, to make it happen
yeah,
because it's a startup. Whereas in other situations, you may get a bit more of mentorship or
mm,
learning, or someone will teach you the right ways to do things, and then that will set you up for your career ahead. So it doesn't matter whether a small or big company, it's really about the interview and understanding whether they're going to give you that support or not.
Mm,
yeah.
that's
I
such
feel
a
like
good point.
it's often dependent on who your manager is as well, because I
Yeah.
feel like they have so much influence on how you start off in a role and how you kind of get to grips with everything. And if they're not willing to take the time to show you the ropes, it's only until you do something wrong that they come knocking, in my experience.
Mm,
But because they haven't shown you, you don't know. You're just kind of freestyling. And then as soon as something goes wrong, they're like, oh, okay, I need to teach you how to do X, Y, Z. So your manager plays a big part of that, regardless of the company.
yeah. Yeah. And
And
the
last
last
but
last
not
tip.
least,
Last tip, apply anyway. Apply for jobs, even if you don't meet 100% of the criteria of what they're looking for. I would say 50% and you're good to go. Especially women as well. The stats are there. We often don't apply unless we meet 80%, while men are applying, they barely meet anything and they get in the job. So don't be put off.
What's your experience with that? Like people applying and meeting criteria?
I mean, when it comes to kind of grads, most people meet the criteria because it's quite basic because you don't necessarily have to come from a specific degree background or stuff like that. As long as you've got decent kind of academics, you've got a good chance. But I feel like, again, it kind of linked with the experience thing. People might think, oh, I haven't got a Scooby Doo about tax, so maybe I
Okay.
shouldn't apply. But actually, you should.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this shows all the time statistically, like men apply, women don't apply, people are not confident to apply when they don't have
Yeah,
enough, the criteria. But yeah, definitely 100%
yeah.
agree with you there.
Because people that have less experience than you or are less qualified are getting the job, and you're sitting there and you didn't even give yourself the chance.
Mm.
It's we need to change that. I think as women, we just need to be confident and just try, be
shoot
willing
your
to
shot.
fail. Yeah, we don't like failure. I think we don't handle it as well, but we need to get accustomed to it and keep it stepping, to be honest.
And you know what? Yeah, sometimes there's even skills that you have that's not mentioned on the job description that is valuable to them. Like if you speak another
Mm,
language, let's say if it's a global company and you speak one other language, they could value that so much they'll just give you a shot
yep,
because they just need a bit of language diversity and different people who can communicate with different customers, extra, that type of thing.
yeah, that's so true. And I think also just came to me actually. Obviously, the whole gender pay gap and the lack of women in senior positions that's blown up over the last few years, and it might actually be kind of on your side as a woman to apply. You might have more of a chance because if they have certain initiatives in place in that company, it could
Mm,
give you a leg up.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
As you said, gender pay gap, this question came to my head. What's your thoughts on grads negotiating their salary?
I mean, where I work and where I've worked before, since I've been doing graduate recruitment, there are bands for grads. So You can try, but there's a band for that specific location and for that specific stream. So negotiating at kind of for if you're trying to get into a grad scheme, no. But if it's a grad job, like an entry level job, go ahead. Why not? You've got nothing to lose because that's a bit more flexible when it comes to salary and pay bands. So then I would be like, yeah, if you've got the kind of the confidence to do that and you have a bit of direction and you've had a look in the market of what's expected and
Mm,
they're offering you a lot lower, then definitely bring it up.
okay, interesting. Very, very interesting.
Mm.
Because I would never have thought to do that. I just felt so grateful that I had a
Then,
job to begin with. Negotiating my salaries when I became an experienced hire, but as a grad, definitely not.
yeah.
But it only came someone in my company as a grad negotiated their salary. They weren't successful, but they just thought to even ask. I had the balls to even ask, and I was
Mm,
quite surprised by that. So, because again, I wouldn't have thought that that would be an option, and that was a man who did it because he thought, well,
mm,
why not?
yeah. I
Worst that
mean,
can happen is no.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Don't ask, don't get. So try.
So, where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Elevate Organization. Um, I don't have any other social media for my page yet. I just want to keep growing Instagram, to be honest.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on our podcast and sharing your top 12 tips.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully, I was useful to someone out there listening.
No, I think you definitely were.
Yeah.
Definitely. No doubt about that.
And you know what? Some of our listeners are global as well. We've got listeners all around the world, so I think that these tips will be useful to anyone
Anyone.
in the
Yeah.
wherever they are.
Thanks, Serena, and we'll catch up with you all next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have any questions or dilemmas, email us on ordinaryblackprofessionals@gmail.com, or we can be found on Instagram and Twitter at ordinaryblackprofessionals. Also, don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and leave a rating and comment.